What do you make of the French people's response to what has happened here these days?
Well, since the last number of hours, since Friday night, you can gradually see the French standing up. And France and the French people are extremely resilient. This morning I had the opportunity of speaking with my employees. There are well over 200 Canadian diplomats and locally engaged staff here across multilateral organizations that are represented here in France, UNESCO, the OECD, and of course our Canadian embassy that does bilateral relations. And everybody, of course, is under the shock of what took place on Friday evening. But I can see not only among our employees them standing up to any threats, as is written here on the tiles at Place la République, but as well being able to continue on with daily life. And of course we've seen that, and that's just France has gone through a number of events over the course of the last 100 years. If we look at that, First World War, Second World War, this city was occupied, yet the French have been able to stand up to any of all of these threats that have been put at them.
This is the greatest violence on French soil since the Second World War. I'm interested, can you share some of your personal experience? How did you live through Friday night? What were you doing and your reaction to it?
Well, like a number of Canadians, Friday night I was out at the hockey rink playing hockey with a number of my French friends and acquaintances, and we actually learned of the first event that took place in the dressing room, but everybody was saying, well, it's just an explosion because of it's either fireworks or something like that is taking place at the Stade de France between this soccer match between France and Germany, and so nothing was made of it until later on around midnight when we left the ice that I was told of these tragic events, and I immediately got into contact with our coordinator of crisis management, and he had already begun the process of reaching out to all of our employees, phoning everybody and finding out whether or not we're all safe and sound, and then working with our officials in Ottawa to be able to make sure that telephone numbers were up and running, and that Canadians who were back home were able to reach out and find out whether or not their loved ones that are here in France are well taken care of, and if they're okay. So all of that process lasted, and during the weekend, obviously, we're reporting back to Ottawa on the events as they were unfolding, both from a political perspective as well as from a consular perspective.
To date, our understanding is there were no Canadian victims. Is that still
that is correct? That is correct. We are waiting for a final determination, which we believe within the next 24 hours will hopefully come from the officials, French government.
We have been showing pictures that you tweeted a picture of the flag at half-mast outside the Canadian embassy as a tribute to those fallen. We heard as well from the Canadian government, from the Prime Minister, offer substantive measures of help. Whatever France needs, Canada would be offering to help.
Correct.
What has Canada done in terms of assistance?
I was on instruction from officials from the government. I was asked to reach out to the French authorities and to indicate to the French authorities that if anything could be offered to the French, that Canada was there to assist and help. We have a long-standing, of course, relationship with France, and in hours of need, Canada has always been there to help and support France and the French people, and it hasn't changed. We've done and extended the same kind of not request, but the same kind of offer to the French government.
Would that assistance extend to further intelligence sharing? We heard from the French Prime Minister, for example, that there was an awareness of this attack or a potential attack coming, that they had thwarted various attacks earlier in the year, so there is obviously intelligence on this being exchanged all the time. What type of sharing arrangement does Canada provide already and might be asked to further add to in the future?
I think that for the sake of our discussion, what I can say is that after the events of January, The Canadian government and our officials were reaching out to the French government. We've been able to increase our relationship. Our work has also increased. Our teams have been in cooperative mode. I can say that without any hesitation that what we have developed over the course of the last 6 to 8 months is much stronger than it was in the past, and we continue to do so.
Let me ask you again, I'm not sure if this will be something that you are able to answer, but we watched overnight France respond militarily with 20 bombs in Raqqa, the heart of ISIS in Syria. We know that the new government has promised and reiterated again in Turkey that it's going to move away from the combat mission role and focus on humanitarian relief and also on training for local fighters. Has there been any expression from France, which is leading many of these coalition activities militarily, has there been any expression from France that it does not wish to see Canada move in that direction, or conversations back and forth on that point?
Well, without commenting specifically to the question that you've asked me, and I would leave that in the hands of the government to be able to respond directly to that. I know that the Prime Minister will be meeting later on today with Laurent Fabius, the French Foreign Minister in Turkey. As you know, the French President was unable to make it to Turkey because of the events, and so therefore I would suspect that perhaps discussions in the general sense of what has been raised could take place. I also know that the Prime Minister will have, if it hasn't taken place yet, discussions with the French President.
As well. Further on that specific point.
Well, it could be on that specific point, and I'll leave it to the Prime Minister's office to be able to.
I completely understand. Yeah. Ambassador Cannon, a pleasure to have you here and to speak to you again in this.